Girl, the brand that defined culture in the 90s and the early aughts, created by girls for girls, teaching young girls history through the eyes of fellow 9-year-olds and managing their biggest problems through a 6-book series. I'm coming for my childhood, I'm coming for your childhood. Today, we are ranking the American Girl doll series. Now, I mostly had the historical series. Those were my favorite. Very convinced that these are the ones who got me in history in the first place, but that's aside the point. And I do not have the complete series of every historical book. I only have these. Coming in 9th place are the most modern of the historical series, not in chronological order, but in when they released order, Marie Grace and Claudie.
Yeah, hi. Quick editor's note. I don't know who the hell Claudie is. Her name is Cecile. I don't know how I messed that up, where I got Claudie in my head, but that's just wrong. It's Mary Grace and Cecile. Okay, we're going back.
First and foremost, I don't know if this just became a new pattern after the original release of the historical books, but their 6-book series did not follow the typical meet, learn, holiday, birthday, save the day, and then changes. Because normally it was those 6 books and the girls just kind of went through the year in that way, but with these 2 girls, the story was developing over the 6 books rather than developing 6 different times. But also, this is the first and I think only time that a historical book series is featuring 2 girls rather than 1. So each girl had 3 books. And honestly, it was really annoying to follow. So you have the first book and they semi-develop that story, but then the second book is about the other girl, and then we have to kind of go backwards in time to catch up to where the first book left off, and I feel like I was rereading passages because the same thing was happening. We're just getting a slightly different perspective, and the perspectives really weren't overall that different. Overall, it just created a half-baked storyline. So they met in singing lessons, and they briefly discussed the realities of being white versus a free or enslaved African American in their society. By the way, this is like 1850 something, just for reference. And then they started working in an orphanage. Then a plague broke out, and that's kind of where it ended. I don't even remember the last book, honestly, because I think they were just dealing with the realities of the plague. All that being said, I'm being very critical of how the story was put together. But all in all, these girls are incredibly brave and have an incredible sense of doing what is right for their communities, which, especially given our current political climate, is so important for young girls, children, to learn about. Empathy, a sense of duty to their communities outside themselves, especially during a pandemic, because who knew that would be relevant? And overall, it's just a great representation, example, etc. of that communities are formed, not found. Coming in 8th is Julia's story. Now, this is going to be silly, but again, my ranking, I just don't think I vibe with her story because it didn't feel historical enough. So she's like 9 or 10 in 1973. She's alive still. Wherever she is, whoever she is, Julia's here. So her story from the 70s just kind of felt like, oh, okay. It felt more modern, so I guess I didn't love it. But what I love about Julia is that she has a very strong moral compass and a very strong sense of right and wrong. But I think that's true for a lot of children, that childhood innocence, like you really have a strong sense of like what is fair and what is not fair, and honestly I miss that. And I liked her moral compass driving her storyline. So there's a boys basketball team but no girls basketball team. She's a great basketball player, so she puts together a petition and she gets herself on the team. What I really love about her stories is that it is giving an age-appropriate representation of what justice is, what justice looks like, and what you can do even as a 9-year-old to try to fix a system that you deem unjust. At number 7, we have Kit. Do you remember when the live action movie came out and all the blonde girlies got that bob? Like, she set the culture at that moment. And I absolutely loved that Kit wanted to be a writer and a reporter. I think that's just a really cool career for people to have, and for someone to be so excited about something at that young of an age. She had a typewriter. She would type little letters in newspapers for her family members, for the people staying at her house during the Depression, contact, it's okay, we don't need it. But I wish that part of her drove the storyline a bit more, because they just kept using it as well, this happened. But then by the end of the 6 books, it's like, she is a reporter now, look at her writing the newspaper. And I'm like, where did this come from? We didn't develop this, we didn't talk about this, we didn't grow this. Because I think those types of major character developments really drove a lot of the other storylines, and because this one didn't, I'm putting it lower on my list. I think it could have been developed more. But I always appreciate when books are able to exemplify for young girls persevering no matter what. And that's really what she shows. Her books are set during the Great Depression. Her dad loses a job loss, financial insecurity, all very real issues that are even affecting us in our modern time. So I think having a book like this is just a great example for young girls. I do keep saying young girls when referring to these books and the example they are setting, because that was the intention originally for American Girl, made by girls for girls. But I will say, I do think anyone, regardless of age, gender, like etc., can learn and take something from these books. But I do keep defaulting saying young girls. But I'll catch myself now. It's for anyone. It is absolutely for anyone. Coming in at number 6, we have Josefina, and I have a very soft spot in my heart for her because I do have her doll. It is in storage, so I can't show you, but I do have it still. I just didn't love her storyline. Most of the development in the book kind of centers around this idea that they're kind of replacing her dead mother with her sister, kind of to the point where the father ends up marrying the mom's sister. And they did clarify that this was a very normal thing to happen during this time period, 1820s New Mexico. But it was just kind of odd, just a little bit odd. I thought there were other things they could develop as well. Grief, possibly. What I really liked about these books is how they portrayed Josefina as being very shy, but also being able to come out of her shell when she needed to. Because they're really playing with this difference between being shy versus being afraid to put yourself out there. You can be both of these things at the same time. You can be shy, but then also be able to put yourself out there. Those two are not mutually exclusive. Inclusive? Exclusive. They can coexist peacefully together. She will run into town in the middle of the night with her sister to meet something about an American so that her family doesn't go back on a deal and become untrustworthy. It's a whole thing. I will also say, after an entire read through of all the books, specifically the Save the Day books, the girls, they really are playing that line between something dangerous, but then also doing something that is saving another person. So some of their Save the Days are a little more, oh, a 9-year-old would do that, that makes sense. But then the other ones are like, wow, that was actually dangerous and caused harm. Maybe we need a little disclaimer that says, hey, maybe talk to your parents. Hey, let's discuss something because this could actually be potentially dangerous. Please do not try at home. Number 5, we have Kaya. My girl went through it. She went through it. Taken captive by an enemy tribe, losing both her sister and her horse, both to be found later, surviving a forest fire. What I love the most is the somewhat age-appropriate representation of fortitude. I also really liked the idea that Kaya had another female role model to look up to that wasn't someone directly in her family, because that's all very important. Having someone in your family to look up to, it's fantastic, but some people don't have that opportunity. But you're still able to find these types of role models out in the world, out in your community, and those are just as valid as familial ones. But the one thing I really, really liked about this series is learning how to unlearn a habit, i.e. caring about oneself more than someone else, being able to learn how there will be trip-ups, there will be times when you fall back a bit or stumble, but you can still keep moving forward regardless. Making changes in one's life does not happen overnight. Sometimes it happens over a 6-book series. I'm gonna be a little preachy here, but it's so important we have to be honest with ourselves that it is okay to be constantly working on yourself, constantly improving, constantly making these changes to make yourself better. Because we will always be making mistakes. That is an inevitable point of life. But it is what we do with those mistakes that define our character, not the mistakes defining our character. At number 4, we have Miss Ollie Molly. It took me a while to figure out how I actually felt about these stories because I am such a World War II nerd. I literally wrote my undergraduate thesis on FDR and isolationist tendencies in the US. I'm in deep, guys. So I had to take a step back from being a minor league historical scholar and look at these books. As a child, look at the characters and try to take a step back from all of that. In thinking about this series, I grew to really appreciate how the book represented a 9-year-old's perspective of a war that was happening across the ocean in another country. The author allowed Molly to be ignorant, not because she was uncaring, because how much was actually available and open for her to be aware of. But each bit of ignorance or misunderstanding actually led Molly to have a greater understanding of the war that was happening, whether that was the sacrifices of rationing, working on the home front, learning about the Blitz in London from a 9-year-old who came to stay with them to save herself, even applying war tactics to a summer camp game. Can I also just add, I saw a rumor at one point that was saying that Molly's father was a prisoner of war. That never happened. That is not canon. So whoever said that, you're wrong. But I do have to knock this book down a bit because they introduced a dog in book 4 and they forgot about it in the last 2 books. At number 3, we have Samantha. This is a pretty common trait among all the books, but Samantha, I think, exemplified it to a T. She is an amazing representation of being unbelievably devoted to her family and to her friends. Most of the time it was kind of reckless, but it was age-appropriate recklessness. Samantha's books teach perspective and compassion. One moment that really stands out to me is that she helps her friend and her 2 younger sisters escape from an orphanage, and while she's trying to figure out where they can go so that they can survive, she brings them back to her home and gives up her own blankets, clothing, food, water to keep them safe. In the end, the girls ended up getting adopted by Samantha's aunt and uncle. I also really loved Samantha's relationship with her grandmother because Samantha lost both of her parents when she was really young, so she's been raised by her grandmother, which her grandmother's from an entirely different generation from her mother, so this is an entirely different parenting style at this point. The grandmother's parenting style might have made sense when she was raising Samantha's mom, but it doesn't necessarily make sense when she's raising Samantha. And being able to share that and have that grace and share that with her grandmother, etc., all without losing her own sense of identity in the mix. At number 2, we have Addie, and I love Addie's story so much. She overall teaches perseverance through adversity and consistent adversity. I truly think her stories are one of the most well-developed written stories. In the American Girl brand, Addie's story is the most controversial because Addie starts her story enslaved and her and her mother escape freedom in Philadelphia. I really appreciated how this book was presented historically, but also in an age-appropriate way, which is going to yield those types of conversations which we should be having. And I think this is the most important part about these American Girl doll books, specifically the historical ones. They are promoting conversations between girls and their parents, their siblings, their teachers, their friends, etc. We are meant to talk about these stories. When Addie gets to Philadelphia, she is struck with the reality of what freedom means: prejudice, racism, financial insecurity. But in all of that, she's also learning so many things: community, a sense of hope. And above all, she never loses hope for her family coming all together again. And it's difficult and it's scary, but hope is driving Addie's story all the way to the end. Hope that circumstances will change. Hope that her family will come together. Hope must always prevail because it keeps us going, keeps us alive, and that is such an important thing for children to learn. And at number 1, Rebecca. I think I just really connected with her as a child, an overdramatic child with the desire to perform. I mean, come on, I'm basically still her. I think the core theme of Rebecca's story is discovering and learning one's dream, but then taking the steps to accomplish those dreams. There are a few things Rebecca is working towards: acting, performing, standing up against the atrocities that those bosses in factories have, supporting unions. She's got range, guys. She's got range. She's an actor and she's also standing against oppression. But one thing I absolutely loved about this story is that the importance of encouragement. Now, encouragement from external forces, from communities, from families, from friends, etc. Very, very important. But there's also a point in the book where her community is not supporting her. She literally stands up on a soapbox and gets a rock thrown at her. But that she doesn't stop there because she also has the confidence and encouragement coming from herself too, and that's her driving force. Because what do you do when you're literally down on the ground and there is no one to help you? How do you get back up again? A lot of that has to come from yourself, has to come from within, and being able to learn how to say, you know what, like, screw all of this, screw everyone around me, I'm gonna do this, I know I can do this, I'm going to do it. That's strength. To young kids finding their way in the world, to the 20-year-old who's been beaten up by the world, it is an amazing reminder to just say, no matter what is going on externally, as long as you have strength in yourself and encouragement in yourself, confidence in yourself, you can do anything. And that's timeless. To conclude, no matter how old you are, no matter what gender you are, no matter where you are in your life, if you come across an American Girl doll book, pick it up. It'll take you 20 minutes to read. And in the end, you'll take away some amazing life lesson and learn a little bit of history. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. This video was a long time coming. I got through the books as fast as I could because I wanted to reread them and relive my childhood. And I was like, all right, now I need to rank them. I need to talk about it. I need to tell people about this. If you think I'm wrong, tell me down in the comments. If you think I'm right, thank you. I appreciate it. So give this video a like, hit the bell so you know when I upload next. Go heal your inner child. Until next time.